Hi guys, I'm waiting to see who else is gonna come on. The counter is not working, so it was saying 0. I just assumed you weren't there. So hi Rosa and I don't know what to call you. RBBR. It looks like Rubber Macwin. My plan is to mess around with some different kinds of paper, mostly cardstock and printer paper, with a bunch of Tim Holtz distress inks, a couple of stamps like this, and to play around a little bit with this little iron that I have. And if I run through those things, then I also want to do some crayon work with my warmer. I thought that might be kind of fun. Hi Carol. I'm just getting set up, giving everyone time to come in, those that wanted to. You're welcome, Carol. And if you guys have any questions along the way, please just let me know. I don't have an exact set what I have to get done and what I don't have to get done. We just kind of get on here and play around. Hi, Kathy. Glad you can figure it out. The audio is too low. I can turn that up. It makes a huge echo. So if it's too, I'll turn it up some, and if it's too low, let me know. I just turned it up. Once I get to working like right here, my voice is going to be a lot closer to the microphone, so that might make a huge difference. We are going to be messing around with paper. This is printer paper. I've also got pieces of regular cardstock here, 110 pound. And we're going to be playing around with Distress Inks by Tim Holtz. Some stamps. I've got my little craft iron here set up ready to go, and also my warmer if we have time. We're going to mess around with some crayons. So I'm just moving some of my inks a little bit closer at hand so I don't have to monkey around and accidentally bump my camera while I'm working. How many of you guys have started to or have been collecting these Tim Holtz Distress Inks? I have tons of them. I have not started collecting the monthly colors. I really want to. Probably will get to that. Just depends. I have a lot of colors, so I may go over those. I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to start out with green and blue on one of them. Not the very first one, because the first one I want to do is the crumpling up to show you what it does. And you definitely need some spray water if anyone's playing along. Your Tim Holtz inks, some kind of a water. This says it's water-based stamp cleaner, but I just have regular H2O in there. And then paper and cardstock. And that's pretty much it. So this is regular printer paper, nothing special. I'm just going to crumple it up. I've got 208, so I'm hoping that most of the people that wanted to come have made it in. Otherwise, this will be going for a while, so no big deal. They'll catch some of it, right? So crumple it up. I like to crumple up around the corners like this so you get all the edges. And then lay it flat. And put on whatever color you want. I'm going to do walnut stains, the darker one. And what I do is I have, typically, this one doesn't have in it right now. I just cut felt into pieces like this. And I keep a piece of felt inside each one. And that way I only need one of these things. I don't have that big turnaround where you have a whole bunch of these sitting in there. I just have one. And I just use the felt because for me that totally works. And I'm just going to rub this right over the paper. See how it picks up all those really great wrinkles? Then I'm going to switch to one that's slightly lighter than this one. Let's try Vintage Photo. I like that one. See, and this one already has that one in there. Yeah, and then we're going to make these two run together by adding a little bit of water. This is nice if you want to add a whole bunch of layers and you don't want to add a lot of bulk to a project. This thin paper is really great. I keep an old toilet paper roll around. As you can tell, it's well loved. And I use this for wiping up water or excess ink or anything that gets on my mat so that I can keep working. So I want to kind of dry this one off. I've also seen people use their irons to smoosh this, which is what these little craft irons are for. So I'm going to go ahead and use my iron on here. Interesting that when I add heat with this iron, it kind of smeared some of the color and it kind of brought out a little bit of purple. Interesting. I'm not sure if you can pick up on that. But here, now this is going to it's going to dry it some, but it's also going to make this, it looks wrinkled, but it's going to be very, very flat. So when I add it to my project, it's really flat. There's no wrinkle to it at all. It's super smooth. I imagine you could probably what was I going to say? You can add all kinds of stuff to that. I watched another video today while I was preparing for this one where they added mica powders. Like if you've got Tattered Angels mist, I think I have one here somewhere. Let me look. Here it is. If you've got one like this, a Tattered Angel Glimmer Mist, and I just keep remaking this myself by adding either eyeshadow or a clear mica and a little bit of water or a little bit of alcohol, then you can spray it on. This will become shimmery. I really need to refill that. I must have added a lot of alcohol to that one because I can smell it. That makes it dry quicker. So it's dry. You can see the shimmer on there. Really cool. I'm not going to add the iron to that, but that is really neat. I like that. That's going to look really cool on a project. If you're looking for stuff, backgrounds and stuff like this for animal prints or manly cards, this would be it. That'd be a really good one. So let's try that again with a little bit heavier of a paper. This is 110 pound white cardstock. And I'm going to grab that blue and that green. We're going to try it with some colors that aren't quite what people would do traditionally with this kind of a technique, okay? I pushed a little bit harder and I have some really deep, dark spots there. Because when I add the water, I want it to really run this time. Let's see. I want to see if I can get it to really run together. I'll try to do the same with the green. I'm pushing a lot harder with the green so that it doesn't stay on the top, but it kind of smooshes into those, what do you call them, like the holes or the negative space. Positive being the part that raises up, and then the negative being the part that sinks down. Alright, let's give that a spray with the water. See what happens. This is not watercolor paper, but it's heavier, so I feel like it can add a lot more water. Should have added a lot more blue, I think. The green is really running. I'm going to add heat to this one because I want to flatten it out and then maybe add a little bit more color. Now I move my camera setting over here because not only does this mat resist heat, but I also have a wooden desk underneath that I'm doubled up. I've got a cooking mat underneath this that will resist heat up to, like, I don't know, 800 degrees, some kind of crazy thing. And then this like Ranger mat over the top. So this, and then the hardwood desk underneath. So that will really, I can pretty much do anything and not have to worry about hurting my surface. The other one was a plastic table, so that just didn't work out as well. Hi, Art Junkie. Thanks for joining us. I try to turn around and look at the screen of the computer and see what you guys are talking about, but when I get into what I'm doing, sometimes I just forget to look back. I'm going to add some some broken china to this now that I flattened it out with the iron. I very rarely use these things like my craft iron and that kind of stuff. So this will give me an excuse to get this stuff out and play. Okay, I'm going to call that one done. Let's try another one. This time, instead of crumpling it up, I'm going to actually stamp this. And I'm going to do it with Memento. Memento, I think you could do it with Stays On too, but Memento is not supposed to bleed. So let's try that out. I'm inking up the stamp as it lays instead of trying to flip it over. I'm going to put the paper right on top. Not sure how wet this Memento ink pad is, so we'll see what kind of impression we get. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got my craft iron from Michael's or somewhere where it was on sale. Does anyone have or is interested in the e-brush? It looks like this. That's an airbrushing system. I could do a little bit of that. There we go. That's pretty cool. I have baby wipes here. And that's what I use to clean off my stamps with. Many years ago when I sold Close to My Heart, I was told not to use baby wipes, that it would ruin your stamps. But I've had some of these stamps for going on 20 years and I've never had an issue. Just giving this a chance to dry a little bit. Then I'm going to add some color. Maybe some aged mahogany. That's a really dark one. And some rusty hinge. Those are two colors I've not used together. Let's see what they do. I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath this one. This is almost a red or a burgundy color. And this one is Rusty Hinge. This one is very, very orange. That's a neat look. Okay, so Jess asked, why am I using it with a piece of paper under instead of just the craft mat? Mostly because when you do that rubbing motion and stuff, all that extra ink that's right here on the paper would be going all over the craft mat. So every time you moved your project back in and out of that, it would get all over the back. So if you're doing something like if you're actually making a card top and you're using the folded card base and you don't want that ink getting all over the back, if you use a piece of paper, when that ink gets on the paper and you lift your project up and you're done, there's nothing on the back and you can lift that ink away. There's not going to be any ink left on here to be smeared around that you have to wipe off. Does that make sense? I don't do that very often, but every once in a while I'm crafting, I just kind of go, oh, I kind of want that underneath there, just for a specific purpose, or I want it to look this certain way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water and I'm going to try to get some bigger drops from the end of this to fall on here. I don't know if you can see them, but I can. I'm just going to let them sit there for a minute. I think this will be a lot more noticeable on the darker. So the darker you make this, the better this turns out. Carol, that's another really good point. Another reason why I have the paper there is to wipe some of it off. If you have a really juicy ink pad, you end up with really dark splotches like this. Sometimes you don't want that. You want more of an even, go around. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Carol. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to come back in with this baby wipe that I used, and you can already see it wicking away the color. And I'm just going to dab on those little colored, or those little dots of water. And it's going to take that color right back up off of here. You can use a paper towel, you can use a Kleenex, whatever you want, but since I had this laying around, that's what I decided to use. That turns out really well on the camera. I try to get you a little bit of closer view. I'm not sure if that's blurring it out more for you or if you're able to see it better. What do you think of that? That's pretty cool. I really like that technique. So the bigger the splotches, of course, the bigger white space you're going to get. And the darker the color, the more of a contrast you're going to get. It looks really cool. I like this one. These are two colors that I probably would not normally use together. So that might turn out really cool on a card that's coming up. So here's the 3 that we've done so far. You could have, of course, add the glitter to any one of them. Another thing that I've done is to make this look a little bit more like faux leather would be to use a brown piece of cardstock in the beginning instead of white paper, and then go over it with a darker like walnut stain, okay, this dark one, and create all of that really cool effect. And then go over the top of the whole thing. Don't smash it out with the iron, leave it bumpy. Go over the whole thing with a Versamark and glossy it. So what I'm saying is put Versamark on it. Any kind of clear ink. I use Versamark typically. So you'd smash that over it. Put clear embossing powder and then heat gun it so that it becomes really glossy and it just looks super cool. Do you guys want to see me do that one? Hi, Mary. Welcome. Thanks for joining. gonna grab some brown paper cardstock. Another thing I've also done with this stuff is instead of crumpling it up like this, I've run it through my embossing powder or my embossing folder with that's supposed to look like bubbles, and then went over the top of the bubble the exact same way I'm going to do this one. And that turned out fabulous. I made it into a purse, I think. It was really cool. So you're already getting the two-tone effect because of the paper being brown instead of all that white showing through. So already it looks kind of like worn leather or beaten up leather, or has a really neat effect. Okay, and this time I am not going to spray it with water because I don't want it to get really wet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that embossing. I already really like the look of that. Okay, now I'm going to grab my Versamark. Try to get the one that's the most dirty, because of course some of that, because this reacts with water, if you have a pristine Versamark like this one, you don't want to use that one. Grab your yucked up one, like this one is my yucked up one, and use that one, because some of that brown may transfer and then you'd be upset. Here's another reason, or another way, yeah, another reason why you'd want to use this sheet underneath. If you don't want to get that Versamark all over your mat and have to clean it up afterwards, put the paper underneath here when you're doing this, so that when you try to get the edges and it goes all over here, you're not getting it all over your mat, and then you have to get that all wiped off. So it already looks kind of shiny, doesn't it? It did turn that light brown, you can tell. It's not going to hurt it. I can totally use that on another project, no big deal. And I always keep all of my embossing powders in containers like this. This is becoming a real trend, I guess you could say. So that all you have to do is sprinkle it on and it falls right back into the container. There's no more having to scoop your paper up and try to make a cone out of it. It's so much easier. And to be honest, when it's out on the counter like this, already in containers, I use it a lot more frequently. Can you guys give me an idea of how many of you have been watching live streams? Can anybody say this is their first one that they've ever seen? Just curious. This is totally new for me. Rosa, and I think she's here. I know she's here. Rosa Aquino, who is a fabulous artist. I learn a lot from her. If you don't know her, check out her channel. She's the one that got me into this. I totally love it. Okay. I am going to get my tweezers, just in case this decides to start flying away on me. I'm going to try to do this right on the flat here so you guys can watch it change. Because that's the best part, right? I'm gonna There's sometimes a couple of little spots because of how textured this is that they don't actually get embossed. You kind of have to go around it. You can look for the like whiter spots. Like I think I missed just a tad on this corner, but that's okay. That's a done deal. What do you think of that? That is really cool. And it has the texture. So when you put it on the project, it's going to have, thank you for everyone chiming in earlier, mountains and valleys. So this is very different on a project than this because this looks textured, but it's very flat and smooth. This is actually textured and it's got the texture. It sticks up off of your project. It is awesome. I love this. This is something that is really good. Like if you're making those little notebooks that you're, putting something on the top of the notebooks and you want it to be protected, if you do that to it, it'll protect the top of your notebook too. Really neat. So here are the four things now that we've done already today. I have another stamp that I haven't used, but I really, really like this one. I'm going to show you, just give me a second because I don't have my Cuttlebug over here, but I'm going to go ahead and take this other piece that I have, that I cut, and I'm going to do the bubble one on here so you can see what that looks like. Thanks for waiting, being patient with me. Here's the bubble texture. And I did use walnut stain on that when I did it back then. And I'm going to mix it up. I'm not going to just do walnut stain, but I want some of the areas to be really dark. And let's see, let's try tea dye. I'm not sure how well this will show up. It's a lighter color, but There we go. This one's really juicy. I like the look of that already. Just the mixing of the colors. My hands are getting really inky. So if you don't like inky hands, this would not be the thing for you. Now, I'm going to try, I've done this before, so I shouldn't say try. What I want to do with this now, I'm going to use my same old grungy ink here. And I'm going to brayer this on, because what I want to do is I want to make sure there's a lot of ink on the brayer. And I want to go across it because I don't want it to smoosh down and get into the middle. I just want the bumps. I just want the bubbles to get the embossing powder on it. So I'm going to try really hard not to over press, but to make sure that I get... Look, even this is turning pink from the last colors I had on this brayer. That's why I use this for all my grungy projects. So if you've got a, like I said, if you've got a really clean one, don't use that one. Although I've used this for years and it's stained, but it's not going to come off on your projects. At least it has not come off on mine. The only thing I do then to get rid of the stuff on here is just brayer it off on the paper and then wipe it down with a baby wipe. Look at this, pink is still coming off. Obviously I didn't clean this one as well as I should have. I have two of these as well. My other one is a lot cleaner than this one. This also pops off if you ever had these before, and you can actually take this into the sink and scrub it off, and I do that from time to time as well. Well, thanks, Rosa. She let me know that I missed a comment, that you wanted to know that if later on if this would crack. It's not cracking now. I suppose if you put it in extreme elements where it got really cold, it may crack. If you use UD, ultra thick embossing enamel, I'll give you an example of that if you've not heard of it. It looks like this, and it comes in all different colors, and it's very coarse. It looks like coarse salt. If you use that and put it on very, very thickly, then it will crack. And that is another really cool effect you can get if you want things to look cracked. So thanks, Rosa. Yeah, I'm not used to having to go back and look at that. I used to be able to just do my projects and stuff right in front of... I didn't do a very good job with that brayer. It sunk down into the whole thing anyway. It'll look cool anyways. You won't worry about it. Anyway, what I was saying was my old setup, I used to create right in front of the computer. So I didn't even have to turn around or look around or anything. You guys were all like right in front of me. It was so much easier. Alright. I think she's talking about the little icons. When you put the smiley faces, they all look like little yellow piles of poo. They're not the same as on Facebook. They're really different. Anyway, here we go. I love the look of this one. This reminds me of reptiles. So that's how that ends up looking. If you want a smoother look, you could go over the top of it and do it one more time. But I like that bumpy look. It does look quite a bit different. I like that. That's really neat. A lot of neat different things that we've done today. Okay, so we're at about 45 minutes. Does anybody want to see a little bit of play on the warmer? I will pull out the crayons and we'll have some fun. You can actually color on these with crayons too if you have a big enough image. I don't really, and this is probably not one that would work really well with it, but I'm going to put it on there anyway. I'll show you what I mean. You want to make sure that you got a box of crayons that you don't care what happens to them. Because as you put them on here, they're going to like melt. And you're just going to slide them around. You want to make sure that if you have one of these that you supervise any young children playing with it. It's not super duper hot, but it certainly wouldn't feel good if you held your hand down on it on the wrong way, in the wrong way. So you want to make sure you protect your children if you're using this with them. This is something that I do not play with very often. I just think it's really cool. Just so I don't chance burn myself, I'm going to go ahead and pull that off with a tweezer. So it's not a really uniform, super cool looking thing. It's just something fun to play with. But you can get some really fun backgrounds, and I have some glitter crayons here too. Let's see if we can get some glitter on here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of paper here down to maybe a decent sized circle. And let's see what happens when we use the glitter crayons. They don't look glitter. Yep, it melts because there's heat underneath it. Oh wow, look at that. Whew, look at that red. That's cool. There's no yellow. I was going to kind of try to follow the colors of the rainbow, but there's no yellow. But this is gold. You can see the glitter. I'm not sure how well the camera's picking that up, but you can see it from my angle pretty well. These are really giving a way more uniform look too. I got these from, they were on sale at Target. Wow, and they're really cool. And I'm going to do the edge with violet, but I can tell I'm going to go off. I am going to go off that little circle, and I don't want to get that all over my warmer, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this up. Put a piece of paper underneath it. Just not a thick piece of cardstock, but just a, what do I say, a printer paper, and then do the last one. The heat transfers through that paper pretty well, because as you can see, it is still melting. How cool. Let me lift that up so you can see the whole thing done. Look at that. That might make a cool looking flower on a project. I missed a little bit of that edge. There we go. Awesome. If you don't have tweezers like these where you pinch and when you let go it holds the thing on its own, I highly recommend getting this. This one came from a McGill set. It came with a whole bunch of these tools, which coincidentally these dotting tools I use way more for my fingernail painting than I do for anything else. But that was a really cool set. I'm really glad I got that because it introduced me to these tweezers, which are amazing. You can get a cheaper version online, and I don't remember what they're called, but they look like this. They're a lot heavier. They've got wood, but they work exactly the same way, and they're awesome too. Thanks, Phyllis. Oh gosh, I'm sorry if I missed people coming in and going out and whatnot. I apologize for that. And I'm missing. Okay, Teresa wants to know if that would work on a coffee filter, and I'm almost positive I have little coffee filters here. Can you believe it? Look at this. I do. I've never even used them. They're not even open. Let's crack them open and try it out. I must have saw these somewhere and thought this would be a good thing to have around. Let's get some of these. Oh, these are really thin. I think we would probably want more than one. And I'm not really sure what you want me to do with this. To be honest, if you just want me to color it like I did the circle. Sure fits nice on here though, doesn't it? Just gonna grab a few colors and just get some colors on here and then see what happens. It's still melting. I did like 2 or 3 layers. A tie-dyed effect. I'm not sure what you mean. How I would do that on here. Because usually a tie-dyed effect is you fold something like this and then you like dip it in and see what happens. But if I do that, I don't think it's going to go through, because if you look at the back of this coffee filter, you can only barely see it through there. Tiny bit on the second one. What's the other thing I did? Oh yeah, that one. Kathy wanted to know if it was bleeding through the under one. So here's the one that was on top. It just barely bled through into this one. Not much. And then this was the third one, which doesn't have anything on it. Hardly anything. Maybe just a few little tiny dots. But that was fun. So we're at 57 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up. I pretty much covered everything I wanted to. This was just kind of a little extra fun thing just to see what would happen. I like to do stuff like that from time to time. I really like these glittery ones. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by. I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy watching them. So if you have some that you're going to be doing, make sure that you advertise them so that we can come. I know Rose is going to try to do one maybe once a week if she's got the time. I highly recommend stopping in and seeing hers. And I'm going to give just a minute or so for people to say goodbye and wrap it up before I shut down. And I'll see you guys next video.